Shadowverse Worlds Beyond provides a fresh start, and with it, the perfect opportunity for new and returning players to jump into this bombastic digital card game. However, with 7 different classes to choose from, all with wildly differing playstyles, the question is, what class should you play? Hey everybody, I'm Espira, and I'll be diving into Shadowverse Worlds Beyond's 7 classes. I'll be breaking down their core strategy, giving you their strengths and weaknesses, and then showcasing some key cards to inspire your choice. Without further ado,
I want you to join me.
Portalcraft is a strategic class that revolves around manipulating cards in your hand. The class will either make use of puppets, which are cheap disposable followers used for trading and activating other card abilities, or using artifacts together to create brand new powerful cards. The best way I could describe Portalcraft is that it's a class that utilizes mechanics that could only really work in a digital card game, and it really leans into that. It's also a class with a very high strategic ceiling, with the potential for incredibly powerful and surprising late game plays. Their ability to disrupt the opponent's hand and deck adds a layer of control to their strategies. That said, the setup required for their powerful plays can make them vulnerable in the early game. The class has a high skill ceiling and requires careful planning to make sure you actually get to execute your game plan. Taking a look at the puppet-oriented strategy, Medical Grade Assassin is a showcase of how we're getting puppets onto the board and then tying them to abilities such as giving them Bane when they enter, which is effectively like Death Touch. If we go all the way to 10 cost, we see Liam, Crazed Creator, which will summon 3 puppets and on evolve give them ward and make them burn the opponent for 2 on death. Shifting over to the artifact side of Portal, we see cards like Gear of Ambition and Gear of Remembrance. They do nothing on their own, but fuse them together and you can eventually get to Masterwork Artifact Omega, a massive 10/10 that deals 5 to the board, heals 5, and has Storm, Ward, and Aura. Now you might be asking yourself, well okay, how do I get to this insanely powerful boss monster? It's probably better if you just see for yourself.
Only ransom I take is blood. Follow me. Order under the breach.
All paths lead to extinction. The Great Purge.
This is new.
So yeah, to get to Master Gurren Lagann, you need to get yourself through this entire flowchart, which I think is bonkers for a set 1 archetype, but I digress. If you pride yourself in the density of your brain, Portalcraft is the class for you. Just wanted to take a sec to say I do understand this is a high level breakdown. Unfortunately, we have very few cards to be able to work with at this very moment. However, I'll be doing a deeper dive into all the different archetypes and all the different classes with the release of the game. So you guys are going to want to stick around for that. Subscribe button's just down there.
How many times do I gotta tell you? I fly solo.
Do spells tickle your fancy in ways that followers just don't? Well, Runecraft is the class for you. Runecraft typically has 2 game plans you can lean into, be it either Spellslinger, utilizing lots of spells over the span of the game to net greater and greater advantage, or using Earth Sigils, which are amulets on board that can be utilized to gain additional effects. Typically, spell boost strategies will revolve around making your future spells more potent or cheaper, depending on how many spells you've used prior, whereas Earth Sigils provide you with stacks that you can use as additional costs for powerful abilities. Runecraft balances between controlling the board in the early game to closing out the game with explosive game ending and often non-interactable combos. That said, the process of building up spells can be kind of slow, leaving Runecraft vulnerable to early aggression. Disruption of their setup can severely hamper their game plan. Dimension Climb is an 18 cost spell that allows you to refresh your hand, spell boost that hand by 5, and recover all your play points.
Espira, even with the bonus play point, you can only go up to 11. How are we ever gonna pay 18?
Well, listen up, kitten. This is where Spell Boost will reduce the cost of the card in your hand, allowing you to play it for a much more reasonable price. Of course, this card won't win you the game on its own, and this is where we can bring in powerful followers like Kuon. On play, you'll get to summon 3 Shikigami, all of which spell boost your hand when they die. Pay 10 for Kuon, and he'll do the follower seppuku himself, and summon a noble Shikigami, who gets as big as the amount of Shikigami that were destroyed that turn. Finally, super evolve him to grant our noble follower Storm. And with all that spell boost we just accrued, maybe we climb into a different dimension and potentially hit another Kuon for a powerful OTK.
Show me your kung fu. Hold nothing back.
Ramp is the name of the game for Dragoncraft. That's to say, this strategy prioritizes juicing its max play points before dishing out powerful followers earlier than they typically would come out. Dragoncraft's signature mechanic is Overflow, which activates once you reach 7 or more play points, granting powerful bonus effects to your cards. Because you're spending your first few turns focusing on ramp, the class can be vulnerable in the early game. Aggressive decks can be trouble, so you have to make sure that you line up a good set of defensive tools to allow you to get your bombs. Dragon Sign is the quintessential ramp spell for this class, ramping you by 1 and then giving you a card if you've hit the max of 10. Utilize those play points to play powerful cards like Genesis Dragon Reborn, a 9/10 with Storm. Or you could play Forte, Blackwing Dragoon, a 5/2 follower with Storm and Intimidate. She could intimidate me anytime. Strike of the Dragon Newt is a good example of a card that gets more powerful as you reach Overflow. It's a good tool against early aggression that can fit into mid-range removal as the game progresses. Call Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Gang, because Abysscraft is all about spooky skeletons, ghosts, vampires, and every other thing that walks in the night. While Abysscraft is technically supposed to be a fusion of the old Shadowverse Shadowcraft and Bloodcrafts, we haven't seen much indication that the class currently will lean too much onto Bloodcraft's self-damaging based mechanics. So for now, we'll just focus on the graveyard-oriented gameplay that comes from Shadowcraft. Abysscraft strategies revolve around sacrificing your own followers to gain an advantage. This could be in the form of ghost tokens that would sacrifice themselves at the end of the turn, to combo plays that net you benefits for sacking off your own followers. The strategy can play aggressively if needed, but will often close out the game with necromancy-oriented combos. The reliance on specific combo pieces and graveyard setup can make the class inconsistent at times, so efficient hand management is crucial for success. Othra's Hellhound Blader is a card that adds shadows to your cemetery, which are analogous to having followers destroyed. If you have Necromancy 4 when she evolves, you get the added benefit of pinging a card for 2 twice. Or, if we look towards Devious Lesser Mummy, you get to have Storm. Big payoffs come in the form of Mukon, a Shadow Crypt Ward, which will evolve for free given a Necromancy of 8. It'll summon a ghost and give departed followers Bane. If you're keen on cemetery-based strategies, Abysscraft is the home for you.
A fool, yes, but a royal fool.
They may be cute, but don't let these fairies deceive you. Forcecraft is the Swarm archetype of Shadowverse, which manifests itself as an aggressive token strategy or as a play spam strategy with massive payoffs. Think Storm from Magic the Gathering. This combo playstyle is fueled by the generation of low-cost fairy followers, which can then be used to empower other cards or swarm the board. This class excels in aggressive early games, capable of quickly overwhelming opponents with a wide board of followers. The ability to chain numerous cards together allows for explosive turns and unexpected bursts of damage. That said, Forcecraft can be vulnerable to control-oriented decks that possess efficient board-clearing capabilities. If their initial onslaught is weathered, they may struggle to maintain pressure in the late game. Arya, Lady of the Woods, provides the player with a crest that says any pixie followers that enter the field get Storm. As of note, fairies are pixie followers. Super evolve her and you also get 3 fairies to push your onslaught. Alternatively, if you want to combo off, look no further than Killer Rhinoceroch, an O2 Storm follower that gets as big as your combo count, pushing for a potential 1-turn kill.
I'm just here to read some books.
Put your opponent on the clock with Havencraft's countdown mechanics. This class orients itself around amulets that will count down every turn. Once the timer hits 0, their effects will activate, providing powerful abilities or summoning powerful followers. Havencraft leans heavily into control, excelling at healing and defensive plays. Their mid-game orients itself around board control to enable them to reach their late game. If you like determining the pace of the game, this class can do it as it builds towards a powerful and often inevitable late game. The defensive nature of Havencraft can lead to a slower start, making them susceptible to being overwhelmed if they can't establish their defenses early enough. Serene Sanctuary is a turn 1 play that will net you 2 cards in 3 turns. Its engage ability also showcases that Haven has the ability to accelerate the timer on their countdown abilities. Once you're in the late game, utilize bombs such as Lapis Shining Seraph. This follower will come back over and over again if the opponent manages to get rid of her. And to ensure that we get to our late game, Jean Saintly Knight will stabilize the board by dealing 6 to all enemy followers and buffing up your defensive followers right after.
The rain cleanses all, but the blood which stains my blade can never be washed away.
Last but certainly not least, we have the Way of the Sword. Swordcraft's identity is centered around the synergy between its officer and commander trait followers. This class focuses on building a strong and commanding board presence through follower-based combat. Strategies typically revolve around establishing a board presence early and then using powerful mid-game followers to overwhelm the opponent. Archetypally, Sword leans into an aggressive mid-range, balancing early aggro with the ability to make powerful plays in the mid-game. That said, the class can lack long-term sustainability and control options of other classes. If their aggressive mid-game push is thwarted, they may find it difficult to close out the game. Knight generation is extremely common for this class, as we can see with Zirconia, Iron Crown, Ward. On Evolve, you'll be able to generate 2 knights and buff your board. The mid-range is very often the endgame for this class, with cards like Albert, Levin Stormsaber, a 3/5 with Storm. However, if you do find yourself going into turn 9, you'll dish out a mini board wipe and then be able to attack 2 times. As you can see, Shadowverse has a wide array of playstyles among its classes, and hopefully this video was a good guide in terms of pointing you in the right direction for the class that you think you should play. That said, I'll catch you guys on our next one.